Minersville, Pennsylvania. Ever been there? No? It's this dot on the map where this story begins. In Minersville, where coal dust painted the backyards, Bobby Owsinski found his escape in music. From local cover bands to touring the East Coast with The Other Side, his passion was evident. Eager to deepen his understanding, Bobby enrolled at Berklee College of Music. His talent quickly recognized, he transitioned from student to instructor, shaping the minds of future audio enthusiasts. Los Angeles became Bobby's playground. Collaborating with legends like Frank Zappa and Lou Rawls, he honed his skills in various mediums: music, commercials, television, and film. Beyond the studio, Bobby's pen became his instrument. Authoring over 25 seminal books, including The Mixing Engineer's Handbook and The Recording Engineer's Handbook, he became a cornerstone in audio education. Today, Bobby Owsinski continues to inspire, sharing insights through his blog and Inner Circle podcast. From a small town to global stages, his journey epitomizes the harmony of passion and perseverance. Let's meet Bobby Owsinski. This is Strikes and Strings. I'm Joe Lombardi, and I'm here with the one, the only, Bobby Owsinski. For those of you that might not know him by name, he is the award-winning author of, well, over 25 books and counting. Especially near and dear to my heart are these two, the Mixing and Recording Engineer's Handbooks, which these are like a Bible to most of us. But Bobby has been, besides a long-time engineer back in the days before internet and before YouTube and Pro Tools, he was doing it the old-fashioned way.
Don't rub it in.
That's a badge of honor as far as I'm concerned. He's a producer. He's worked with, I mean, so many famous people, Hendrix, Elvis, The Who, the Ramones, Chicago, just to name a
Wait. I didn't work with Hendrix. I worked on a project.
project. Yeah, I
Yeah,
was
but
gonna say
he was
he,
around before me. So
yeah, I was gonna say he might have passed
yeah.
before
and
you.
and, and Elvis too. I worked on a project, but not with him.
Um, in the genre of music and pro audio, you are an award-winning bestseller author in this niche of audio and do home recording and stuff. And you've got out over 25 books now.
Yeah, there's more than that. There's not all.
Okay.
They're not all in the music industry though.
Oh,
Written some
okay.
outside the business. Yeah.
Okay. Well, tell me, how did this whole thing get started for you as far as you were born in Pennsylvania? That's correct?
Yeah, yeah. Well, like everybody, I played in band. Well, I shouldn't say everybody because that's not the way it is today. But I played in bands from the time I was maybe 14, and I was because when in the time I grew up, there were so many places to play,
Yeah,
which is not like today.
not
Uh,
like to.
while I was still in high school, I was playing 4 nights a week. So I got a lot of chops together, pretty early, and then from there toured around quite a bit, mostly up and down the East Coast. Had various record deals, and none of which worked out well, by the way.
Yeah.
Then I decided that there was one particular experience I had that was not very comfortable in the studio,
Okay.
and I thought to myself, I think I have to learn more about this. I'm going to be a producer. So I went to Berklee College of Music But
Oh,
I already had a degree in electronics, and I had lots of studio time. When I was signed to Delight Records, which is a subsidiary of a major label at the time that's not around anymore.
was it
Um,
Polygram or
Polygram, yeah. One of the things that I was able to do is get some engineering chops by engineering all their demos.
okay?
So I got to Berkeley and they found that out. And after a semester as a student, they said, "Would you like to be an instructor here?" So I was a student and an instructor at the same time, which I don't recommend. It's not very
Yeah,
fun. Um, anyway, what happens to everybody at Berkeley, most everybody is if you're any good, after 2 years, a year, 2 years, you go, I think I'm going to go do this for real.
yeah,
And I
right,
did,
right.
I did too. And I thought about moving, and of course, there's only four places at the time you can go: London, New York, Nashville, L.A.
Yeah.
And LA was the warmest, so I went up
Okay,
there, and that's
okay.
that's how it
Yeah.
kind of started.
Now you were at Berkeley. This would have been around late.
78, 78, 79.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
Oh man. So probably some hey, cool people coming through there, I'm sure.
yeah,
That
yeah. There was a lot, and there was a lot of people that went on to become like top studio musicians here for a while before they moved on that I recorded, back then.
yeah, yeah.
One of the things that was interesting, they we were also in charge, the people in the studio that ran the studio were also in charge of recording all the concerts. So I got to record all sorts of cool people. Lou Rawls,
Oh,
for instance, the Saturday Night Live band. As a matter of fact, the Saturday Night Live band gave me a lesson that I'm so glad I had. So we were we set up during the day for them because they weren't bringing instruments at all, or they weren't bringing back lines or drums or anything like that. So we set
okay.
everything up, and we thought we had a pretty good drum sound. And the drummer, who I think was Charlie Drayton, he came in, and I couldn't see him because we didn't have cameras. I could just hear what was going on.
Mhm.
And he got in the drums and he played a little bit, and he goes, "Oh God, these drums sound so bad." I'm thinking to myself, "Gee, I didn't think they were bad at all." And then he started to play, and they sounded fantastic. It was the best drum sound I ever had to that point.
Oh, yeah.
And it just showed me that, there's so much that has to do with the player. And
Hmm.
and really that,
Oh, yeah.
especially with drums, that was the key.
And of course, what he was hearing is not a good representation of what you were hearing. You know,
No, well, again, he's used to very finely tuned drums that, you know, from New York City. And
right.
um, I don't know if they had drum tuners back then, but he was used to having his drums sound pretty good. Sound better than those anyway. It was a rental set that they got, or it might even have been a student set that, somebody said,
Ah,
"Oh, yeah, let him use my drums." That
yeah.
might have been it.
What was your mic setup roughly?
Oh,
What
I
you
don't remember,
using?
to be honest
Yeah,
with you. We didn't have terribly high-end mics then, mostly because, students were bashing them all the time, or leaving
yeah.
with them. So they tended not, there was a
Probably
few, didn't have a lot.
57s, a lot of 57s laying around.
A lot of that, yeah. We had a lot of ribbon mics, like Beyer M160s and stuff, which always sounded great.
Yeah. They were
And then,
kind of sensitive though, weren't they, to the
yes, and I learned that fast early in my days, where I put a bunch of them on toms and thought, God, these sound fantastic. Pop.
for about 2 seconds.
Yeah, right. They sounded great for a minute.
Yeah,
But anyway, yeah, after that, I worked in bigger studios, and they had the
that's the good stuff.
47s and 87s. 87 was the hot one. Then everybody wanted an 87. Occasionally you'd see a C12 or 251. And then, when I got to the West Coast, there was a lot more of those out there. People are a lot hipper to microphones, it seemed,
Mm,
on the West Coast back then.
yeah, interesting. When, so when did you start to notice? I don't know if anybody's asked you this before. It's an interesting question. I think it is. When did you start to notice, even in the smallest way, this transition to digital stuff, and I don't know personally when the first DAW came out, if it was Pro Tools and when it came out, but when did you start to notice that kind of stuff?
Yeah, it was Pro Tools, but even before that, there were two manufacturers that had big 24, 32 track recorders. Mitsubishi was
Hmm.
a big one, and Sony. So that was the first entree. They were twice as expensive as analog machines, but they
Wow.
had sound. And then what really happened after that was the Sony 3348, which is a 48 track. That took over. That was everywhere.
What-
And it was super expensive, but you had 48 tracks, so that was a big deal. But I think it was 1999, 98, 99 is when Pro Tools came out. And at first it was just a two-track editor. But as time went on, it seemed like everybody started to use it. And then it seemed like within 6 months, all of the 3348s were gone,
Wow.
replaced by Pro Tools. It happened, it seemed like it was overnight, but it did happen.
Did because one of the big things for me and just I'm a tactile person. I like to touch knobs and turn knobs. It would be so terrible to have to mix and do things just with mouse clicks. It just takes like the to me like the life out of it just for the feeling and the way when you guys used to do stuff, you'd have two or three guys at the mixer board before automation, right? Trying to get through a track to get it on the tape, right?
Yeah, it was a huge amount of fun, to be honest with you.
Yeah, bet.
And
I bet.
some of those mixes, you just can't reproduce because they were really organic.
Yeah.
But yeah, there'd be at least three set of hands and sometimes four. Sometimes, you get the whole band in there. And it would be like, okay, when this happens, the beginning of this verse, press this button here. It'd be one of those things.
And
So
that was the drummer's job. Push
yeah.
this fader up right here and hit that button then and
Well, usually you didn't give them faders. You gave them, mutes and
it,
stuff like that, and aux sends and things.
gotcha. They didn't graduate to the faders yet.
Yeah. But what ended up happening was when automation, well, also everybody learned after a while that while it's a wonderful experience if you went from beginning to end, it hardly ever happened where everybody got it right, especially the more people you had involved. So
Sure.
it was, well, let's cut it together. So, okay, let's do it as far as we can do it. Okay, now let's pick it up from the end of the verse and let's do it. So it was all cut in sections after that. And there's so many big hits that were done that way. As a matter of fact, I had a experience with Ken Scott. Ken Scott, one of the five Beatle engineers, and helped write
Yeah.
his autobiography. And we flew into Nashville once and going to give some lectures. And there was a studio designer that met us at the airport. And
Oh.
he insisted that we go to his latest studio. So we went to the latest studio, which really sounded great. And he played Crime of the Century, the Supertramp
Oh.
album that Ken had
Mhm.
done. And Ken um, claimed for a long time that was the best he could ever do. And so much so that he kind of got depressed. It was like, I just can never do better than this. But that being said, it was super high quality.
Mhm.
And we're playing a song for Ken, and Ken is on the chair, and he says, "Stop! Wait, wait, wait! Go back!" And playing it. And he says, I never heard that edit before because they had cut it in sections, just the way we're
Gotcha.
talking,
Mhm.
and the resolution of the monitors weren't good enough until that point in time for them to actually catch
Hmm.
that edit. So
Speaking of getting it. I know I saw on your bio that you were in on some of the first DVD surround sound stuff.
Yeah, I did 120 or so, and it was a lot of concerts, some studio projects that were redone in surround, some TV shows and some films. So it was a combination of a lot of stuff, mostly music though.
Okay.
So and most of them were live concerts that were done or
Ah,
redone. Um, the only one I didn't do is the one I wanted to do the most, and I almost did it, and that was a Cheap Trick live album. And they sent the tape to us, 24 track tape. And when I opened the box, it smelled really funny.
hmm,
I thought, ooh, this is a problem. And I should have followed my instinct and sent it to get baked,
yeah.
but I didn't. And I put it on the machine, I hit rewind, and it exploded into 1,000 pieces.
Oh, geez.
So I called up the record label, and they said, okay, just pack it up and send it back. Luckily, it was a safety master, so so bad.
Oh, wow.
But they never sent me the real one to work on after that, so I didn't get a chance, and I was really
Yeah.
looking forward to.
So for those of you that are watching and might not know back from the analog days, uh, if you could explain it probably a lot better than I can, but bake in a master tape, you can only do that like once, right? And it's good for like one more play, probably, or how
Well,
does that?
you can get a few more. I mean, it's still done today on archival
Oh,
tapes.
oh,
Um,
is it?
yeah, it's still done because there's always new stuff that people find, there's stuff in the vault. Oh, they're mislabeled, and somebody plays it, and they go, "Oh, wow, what is this?"
Right.
So
I
there's
got
still a lot of that. It's done in a convection oven, and there's various formulas how to do it, how long, and what
yeah.
temperature, whatever.
It's,
But yeah, once you do that, it's kind of like, oh, we got at least one more, but maybe not more than that. Because what happens is the magnetic part starts to separate from the backing. And you don't want that because obviously if the magnetic part goes away, the music goes away.
right.
So the what you do is, and it's because the sticky stuff in the middle, the glue that's holding it together kind of loosens its grip. So when you bake it, then it returns to gripping it a little bit, at least, for one more pass.
Yeah. Wow.
So yeah, it's a tricky thing, and there are people that do this all the time that are really good at it, that they specialize in this stuff.
So obviously, if you had a project where you needed it done, you'd seek out those specialized people that,
Yeah, I can call up three or four right away,
yeah,
just around town that I know. I didn't know many then, but you could always find out.
yeah.
Uh, but anyway, that was my one experience that I wish I could have back.
So I know I'm bouncing around here a little bit, talking about, analog to digital. You recently wrote a book, I believe, talking about the new music business, going into, the way things work in this digital world.
Yeah, that's a little dated. It's a little dated now because it
Oh, is it?
came out before COVID, and
Oh, did it? Okay, gotcha.
the publisher it the publishers changed. The one publisher acquired another one that had the book, and I've not been able to do an update, which it really needs. But that being said, it was like, yeah, we're in a different world, so you have to approach everything differently. You have
Yeah,
to think about it differently. A lot of the things still apply. For instance, just the idea of getting paid, the idea of digital royalties. A lot of people are still stuck in, the CD age where you getting paid for sales and you're getting paid a lot. And, that doesn't work that way anymore. So you have to kind of adjust your scale of thinking because, if you sell 100,000 CDs, you can actually break even and make some money. If you sell, you'd have to go up to about 5 million. Actually, 50 million streams is considered a minor hit,
mm,
and 100 million streams is sort of a hit. Uh, when you get beyond that, then it's a hit. Um, and that scale is hard for many people who've been in the business for a while to understand. They can't quite get their arms around it.
Yeah, I'm one of the people still trying to navigate it and figure it out. But you just wrote a book on mastering?
Well, it's the fifth edition. The first edition came out in 2003, 2004, and this is the fifth edition. So it's an update. I don't think it's been updated since 2018 or 19, so it was due for, refreshing. And the whole idea that, I mean, the big difference through all this was when all of my books started, we were back in the analog world and we're working on consoles and we had real mastering engineers and just everything was analog. And then gradually, as we moved through analog into digital, then the books followed just so they'd be up to date. And now, we're in desktop recording, mixing, mastering.
Yeah.
So all the books have to reflect that.
When we were talking about, things started to pop up in the Pro Tool station, uh, and the MCI boards were gone overnight. But were there still some type of something surface with faders to go with the Pro Tools, or was it just there's a computer screen and a keyboard and a mouse? I mean, what was,
Yeah, it took the longest time for computer accessories to come around.
yeah.
So, we had all the software, it was good, but there's no real way to manipulate it well. It was, like you
Mhm.
say, down to a mouse and a keyboard. And slowly but surely, we got some other tools where you got some faders that you could use, and you had the analog experience, so to speak. It took a while. It was the same thing with audio interfaces, which were very rudimentary in the beginning. It
Mm.
was just a card, for instance, that was mostly used for gaming, and that's what people used to get their audio in and out of the machine.
Oh, wow.
So,
About that.
come a long way from there
Yeah.
where now it actually sounds good. But that a lot of that is what gave digital its poor reputation in the beginning
Right.
because it was a 16-bit medium, first of all, and the uh, encoders and decoders, the digital audio DACs and digital audio converters and analog digital converters, they were pretty poor. So now, even in the cheapest interface that you can buy, they're far better than what everybody had back then. We've come a long way. Uh, digital can really sound good. And I know many people that have done the A/B tests, that have done, well, Dave Pensato, actually, we talked about this quite a bit. And he said that he went and he did a mix on his favorite SSL in his favorite room and did it analog, and then came back and did it in his studio all digital. And he said he kind of liked the digital better.
Wow.
There you go.
How about that?
Yeah.
Hmm, that's interesting. Of course, I I personally am an analog person, and I love to get into as much new technology, the AI stuff now I'm, really into as far as the video, and you can clone yourself and make these avatars, and it's just crazy. But going back to recording, like I'm a guitar player mainly, and of course there's these great amp sim plugins and stuff that sound phenomenal. And but I still like to put a microphone on a cabinet in a room, and because I feel like all that is missing to people that are learning now that have not experienced doing it that way. And there was just like missing step A through D and just hopping in afterwards. It's like a boxer not knowing how to wrap his own hands,
Yeah.
for a fight. It's like they're missing their fundamental, what makes up a recording engineer, what it's like to actually record. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's one of the reasons why I write books. I feel like I'm a bit of an historian, where I'm
Yeah,
trying to preserve a lot of the techniques that have been handed down to me, for instance, that I don't want them to disappear into the ether.
right, right.
So I try to make sure that they're written down someplace, and that's what you get in my books for the most part.
And we all thank you for that. Definitely.
Well, again, I write books because I learn stuff too. So that's the main reason. And the historical aspect. But I'll give you something on amp sims that happened to me. I had a friend that was a VP of product development at Line 6. And he called me up and he said, "We're having this A/B listening test. Do you want to take part?" Yeah. And it was for Helix, the first
Mhm.
Helix. And what it was there's like 20 different sounds, guitar sounds. And it was A/B. You didn't know which was which, the amp or the simulation. And after a while, I began to notice some things, and I knew which one was the Helix.
Mhm.
I could pick it every time. The funny part was I liked it better. And I mean, they recorded everything so well with, great microphone selection and preamps and just did it as good as you can. But there was something about the amp sims that really worked. So,
I'm
I'm
not
not,
gonna lie, I know what you're saying. I
yeah,
agree that some of them are.
some of them are, oh, and what really convinced me was when I read that Metallica was going out on tour with Kempers. Kempers are Axe Effects. I'm not sure which one, but
Yeah, one of
they're,
them.
they were going out with an amp sim, and I thought, well, if those guys can do it, then there must be something to
Yeah,
this. It's real. And then Def Leppard, and on and on.
yeah. Of course, then you get into the logistics of running a show off of something that's software based, computer chip based, like running a show on a laptop, and you get into all the Murphy Law type stuff that anything that can go wrong will go wrong, as we know, being musicians and behind the scenes and stuff that
Yeah,
normally works perfect, something it doesn't work at a show.
but
And
they always have backups.
yeah, I got backups on the backups.
Yeah.
Yeah. So of the analog era, what what was the thing that you disliked the most working with analog gear throughout
Tape.
the tape?
And I cannot for the life of me understand the this fascination with tape saturation because none of us liked it back then. You
Try to
talk
get
about it has glue and we all hated that because what would happen is you would listen to what was going on the floor, the music that was coming through the microphones, and you listen to it before at the tape machine and you go, oh, wow, that sounds really good. And then you play it back and you go, why does it sound different? So that, and everybody from my era feels the same way for the most part. There are very few that say, oh, yeah, I love that glue. Anybody that went through it said, I don't know. A few years ago,
interesting.
I had a client that insisted on recording everything analog and using tape. And we did. And it was a giant pain because
Mm,
she didn't understand, first of all, how expensive it would be.
yeah,
And then, I mean, the biggest problem was you get the band going, the band is really hot, and you go, oh, let's do one more take. And it's a 5 minute song, and you look, you only have 4 minutes of tape. So then it's okay, let's put another one on. You roll it off, and by the time you roll another one on, it's 10 minutes later, and the band is cooled down. So that's not good. That's not the way it
right.
should be. I don't envy those days or nostalgically look back at all on that.
That's what I was wondering. You had what was the mastering deck of choice? The Studers, or I guess there was a couple different ones.
Oh, for a mastering recorder, um,
Yeah.
it depends where you were at. On the East Coast, there were a lot of Scullys,
Oh,
and the West Coast, there were more. There are a lot of MCIs because MCI made tape machines as well, and
oh,
good tape machines. So we saw a lot of those, and uh, the occasional Studer, but not
yeah.
all that many.
Oh,
So again, maybe it was just the studios I was at, but I never saw that many Studers. One of the things that was interesting though is the way those tape machines were set up. They had an extra set of heads, so they had a really weird tape path, and you needed that for the delay. And there's a delay that you have that you need. So if you basically have to figure out, oh, this is going to be too hot, let me turn it down. And you need a little bit of time in order to do that, or else you ruin your master lacquer. So there was this
oh,
delay, and there are no such thing as tape as digital delays. So
yeah.
everything was done by tape delay, and the only way you can do that on this deck is to have another set. And where you usually have the heads on the bottom, this would be like over on the side, and you have to
Oh,
wind all the way through. So
wow.
they were really odd, and they were pretty specialized. But MCIs and Scullies, a lot of Scullies. Scullies didn't last all that long. They were big for about a 5 or 6 year period, and then
Oh.
kind of went away.
Yeah, I hadn't actually heard of those. I mean, not that I'm that highly educated on all the analog gear, but that'll give me something to do a little research on.
Yeah.
So, Bobby, what are you working on now? What's on your what's on your work desk now?
I work less in the studio on projects than I have in the past. Um, I I really have to love the artist and know I'm going to have fun before I do it.
Gotcha.
And the fun part is primary because after working so long on projects that just drag on and on and on and on and on, and it's like, no, I had enough of that. There was one artist I used to work with. I loved the guy, and he was brilliant. But we'd do one of these things. We'd finish a song, and he'd listen back and he'd go, "This should be calypso feel." And we cut it a second time in calypso, and then he'd go, we really need a Latin feel here. And we do it a third time, and we'd end up doing it, a hard rock version. So we'd do everything like 4 or 5 times. The problem was I was only getting paid for one.
Yeah.
And it was like, and then we'd end up always going back to the first one anyway. So it's like, I've had enough of those, you know.
I think Tim Pierce tells a good story about something like that, where, he played uh, a couple of notes, and they didn't like it. And he circled around to all these different harmonies and he came back to the exact same thing that he originally played. And they're like, that's it. That's what I want. And he's like, okay, great. You know,
Yeah. No, it's a great business except for the clients.
right. Yeah, artists and producers and stuff can be interesting and fickle sometimes. But
And record labels, the A&R people can be the biggest of pains.
really,
Yeah, because they send notes and sometimes they don't make any sense. So, you're fighting. If there's a good management team, they're in the middle and they can negotiate it. But if they're not particularly strong, then it's usually the producer that's doing it. And, it's too much of a pain to have to go through politics as well.
yeah. Talking about your recording rig, what do you work with when you're doing anything hands-on? I mean, are you working in the box, or are you got a board you put your hands on, or
I don't, but I work in a number of different studios that I like, and there's always a nice console.
I
Uh,
got you.
so I mean, that kind of starts everything right there. But yeah, then it goes into Pro Tools, and then
Yeah.
bring it back and mix in Pro Tools. I started on Digital Performer way back when. Digital Performer version 1, and it wasn't capable of doing something. I don't remember what it was, so I changed to Nuendo version 1. And that was a lot better. But all the projects I was getting in were Pro Tools. Nobody wanted to work on Nuendo. So I'd have to transfer them, and then I'd have to transfer them again sometimes. So it was like, let me just learn Pro Tools and be done with it. And that's why I've never really changed after that. I dabbled in Logic, some other things, but
Have you tried the Harrison console
yes,
plugin at all?
it sounds fantastic.
Yeah,
I think it's the best sounding DAW out there, to be honest with you.
yeah,
But again, we have this whole thing of, do I want to spend the extra time having to transfer things and.
right. Yeah, I
And,
noticed it right away when I tried it, how much better it sounded, or more realistic to an actual console. Bobby, wow. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. And I really enjoyed it. And it was great talking with you. And hopefully we can do this again sometime.
yeah, Joe, thanks very much for inviting me.
Yeah, thank
Had
you.
fun.
All right, everybody. Bobby Owsinski.